Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Over 300 new police officers joined the JCF. Calls for zoso to end in August down St. Andrew. And later in sports, certification is still being worked on for National Stadium. Thank you for joining us. I'm Carrie Simpson. Here are the details. Up first this afternoon, the police are reporting that the intersection between Malines Road and Washington Boulevard has been cleared. This as investigators have completed their work in the area following a deadly shooting incident this morning. TVJ News understands that sometime around 8 a.m., men traveling on a motorcycle fired several shots at a man driving a Toyota Probox while in traffic. He was pronounced dead. It's further understood that in total, 3 vehicles were hit. A digital employee traveling in one of them was also injured. He is said to be in serious but stable condition. Now we'll have more on this developing story in subsequent newscasts. The Jamaica Constabulary Force received a boost in numbers following the graduation of over 300 new police officers last Friday. Details in this report.
The Jamaica Constabulary Force JCF appears to be on track to reach its goal of 14,000 members by the end of the year. Currently, it has approximately 12,000 members. The addition of 334 police officers from batches 157 and 158 recently will bring the force closer to this target. National Security Minister Dr. Horace Chang says this expansion of the force is integral to the ongoing transformation of the JCF.
You have joined the force at a pivotal point in time, one where the Jamaica Constabulary Force is making significant strides in achieving its objectives and strengthening the institutional framework necessary for sustainable crime reduction. Policing is maybe one of the most universal, if not the most universal, professional activity in the nation. And the police force is the most widely recognized institution of society. They work 24/7 at all times.
Dr. Chang says reducing homicides remains a central focus of these efforts as it directly ties into the fundamental right to life. Additionally, Dr. Chang has called for professionalism, integrity, and impartiality within the force.
The power vested in you is not to be abused, but rather to be used in service to people. Every police officer must conduct themselves with due courtesy, decorum, and professionalism, especially when interact with senior citizens, women and children, and many of the disadvantaged who look to the public for support and protection. Our police force must serve as protectors and guides, particularly for the most vulnerable members of society.
And importantly, Dr. Chang emphasized that the success of crime reduction initiatives depends on the joint efforts of the police, families, and the wider community.
I'd like to charge to remember this hour. When you go back to the various districts across Jamaica, they are joining with the Jamaica Constabulary Force and institution. And you need to give them the same level of support they're receiving here today. They have been successful in training. They will continue to be successful. I know it's a very bright and outstanding lot of young Jamaicans, but they will continue to need the support of the community. I think about Victorian said, the police, the community, and the community, the police.
O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
The People's National Party PNP is calling for an end to the zone of special operations in Augustown. The measure was implemented after a spate of murders in the area nearly 5 years ago. More in this report.
Some residents of Augustown have been advocating for the zone of special operations ZOSO to be removed. At a PNP political meeting on Friday, they argued that the crime measure has been affecting not just their social life, but businesses in the area as well.
This is where I was born and raised, and all of us here live as one. No matter whether you support the PNP or the JLP. We as a community, we try our best to always live as one. But we want to see that when we look at what Augustown have to offer the world at large, and Donna, you spoke about it earlier, that we have shown that when there is peace, there's a lot of things that comes along.
The ZOSO was implemented in Augustown back in July 2020 following a surge in violence and crime in the area. However, after years of its implementation, some feel its presence is no longer beneficial.
When you come into your community and you see soldier checkpoint, it gives you a different kind of viewpoint of your community. You don't feel good. When do you take up a soldier checkpoint? When do you stop putting people under pressure? When do you begin to move that zoso out into development? And what will cause it to be lifted? Because there must be a way to get out of underneath a particular kind of oppressive law.
But the process to lift a zoso involves consultations with the Prime Minister, Chief of Defence Staff and the Commissioner of Police. Opposition leader Mark Golding says that the discussion needs to start happening now.
To move forward, because at the end of the day, the law must be for the people's benefit. The law was made because we thought, well, us, but the government was trying to deal with that situation. We put our thoughts into it because there were certain things in there at the time that would have made it very oppressive, and we argued against those things and got some things changed, but it's not perfect. And the people who live through that experience must be our guide as to what needs to happen and how it ought to be dealt with on an ongoing basis.
Hal Shane Burke, TVJ News.
In the meantime, opposition spokesman on finance Julian Robinson is predicting wide-scale industrial action if the government does not commit to the agreements in the latest round of wage negotiations. He was speaking at a party meeting on the weekend. A new round of public sector wage negotiations has started, and already the opposition is raising alarm. Opposition spokesman on finance Julian Robinson told party supporters in St. Thomas that unions are concerned about the government's lack of commitment.
The government commits to something and then doesn't follow through. And in this particular case, there is an agreement signed with the Confederation and they expect the payments as of April 1st. The minister said that monies have been budgeted for in the upcoming budget. So I'm appealing to the government, ensure that those payments are made on time so that the public sector doesn't suffer from industrial action.
And Mr. Robinson responded to the Prime Minister's budget presentation.
The problem is we are 9 years into, we're almost at the end of a term. And, I struggle to deal with the credibility of new announcements, right? Dealing with efficiency. When you have had 9 years to deal with it, many of the things that have been announced are things, quite frankly, that should have been done a long time ago. And one has to question whether they're being announced because we are on the eve of an election, right? The Prime Minister is not new to this position. If you announce these things in your first year of office, you could understand that, but not when you have been at the crease for 9 years.
In the meantime, Mr. Robinson says, should the PNP form the next government, rural agriculture will be a priority.
Farming is the backbone of our economy. We're going to invest more in research and development so that farmers can have better techniques. They can get the support so they can know when to plant, how to plant. We're going to invest more in improving access to funding for farmers. One of the biggest issues with farmers is that they have difficulty accessing finance. So we're going to do more to make it easier for farmers to access finance.
8 furnished 2-bedroom homes were handed over to residents of Rocky Point in Clarendon who were left homeless in the wake of Hurricane Beryl. It's an initiative by Kind Hearts Jamaica in collaboration with Food for the Poor. But with the homes constructed in the same area, do the residents stand to lose during the upcoming hurricane season? Romardo Lyons reports.
Smiles, gratitude, joy, and something they didn't have over their heads since Hurricane Beryl: roofs.
I am very grateful about this house. I thank the donor them very much for donating such funds and the people them who are part of it, who work toward this great establishment. I thank them all for this.
Very glad. I'm elated. All the words that can describe happy.
They say what was shown in the media couldn't compare to the actual challenges they endured.
My roof gone completely, lose furniture, everything.
I get strength from the persons that are around me, so the little children. They will come along, so they will change the mood when you get, and I'm just giving thanks.
But there are concerns that they could face similar losses if another system impacts the island. The area is no stranger to serious flooding.
Where the Rocky Point Division on a whole is located, it's the southernmost tip of Jamaica. That peninsula you see at the bottom of Jamaica there, that's where we are. So we are out into the sea and we're out in the pathway of all of these storms and hurricanes that passes by.
That's why effort went into making the houses more resilient.
And that is exactly what we're doing. And that is what the Food for the Poor and the International Organization Migration partnering with GEM, Global Empowerment Mission. They are now going around in the area and strengthening the roofs, repairing the roofs, replacing some of the roofs that need to be repaired in order for them to be properly strengthened and strapped.
Even the flooring was improved.
Some time ago, we had discussed at the Municipal Corporation Planning Committee meeting that in these areas, our houses need to be built above ground, so like a meter above ground. If you look at the foundation for this house, you'll see that it's above ground level. So if no matter how hard or how long the rain falls, it won't be able to affect a house like this.
Now, for the first time since Beryl, the recipients know comfort.
Well, I used to live in that house there, but now I live in this one, which is better, living condition.
Staying at the shelter for 4 months and 4 days was like in prison. Backache, pain, knives, high blood pressure, stress, everything. Get in this house, you can sleep peacefully. You have more space.
And relocation was difficult, as many would be cut off from their livelihood.
Over the years, we have been looking at see how we could relocate these people. Well, let me just say something to you. Most of these people live from the sea. It's difficult to move them out of the area. If you put them out of the area, we build housing schemes to move them, they still come back to the sea. But they want to be near to where they make a living.
Romarda Lyons, TVJ News.
Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett says some of the roads which have been repaired are being funded through revenues from tourism. Speaking at a function recently in St. James, he highlighted how the funds are being utilized for infrastructure improvements.
We did it for Flanker. You see how Flanker look nice? It's tourism money that make Flanker look so nice. You see how Norwood look? It's tourism money that went up there and fixed all the roads and so on in Norwood. You see how Lilliput look? It's tourism money that fixed all the roads in Lilliput. You see how Grangepen looking now? It's tourism money that is right here at Grangepen doing all of these for you, the people of the area.
According to Mr. Bartlett, this initiative is a continuation of efforts that began under the Bruce Golding-led administration.
And Mr. Golding said by policy that we must put aside $1 billion every year for building communities and housing arrangements to assist the people who live within tourism areas and the workers of the tourism industry. So I was the minister responsible for that. And Minister Horace Chang was the Minister of Housing at the time, responsible for housing. And so we, from the Tourism Enhancement Fund, would then move the money from TEF to housing and say, Housing Minister, implement this program that the TEF has developed.
It's time for a break. Stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back. We're continuing the news. The St. Mary police are investigating a fatal motor vehicle collision that occurred along the Harmony Hall Prospect Main Road over the weekend. TVJ News understands that around 1:27 p.m. on Friday, a white Toyota Corolla was in the process of making a left turn when it was struck by a white Toyota Axio traveling in the same direction. It's alleged that the Axio was traveling at high speed. Now, the driver of the Corolla, 74-year-old Ronald Schaefer of a Tower Isle address in the parish, was rushed to the St. Anne's Bay Hospital where he was pronounced dead. A passenger from the Axio sustained minor injuries to both legs and was treated at hospital. Now, the police are again urging motorists to exercise caution on the nation's roadways. It's now time for the Business Minute. Finance Minister Favour Williams will soon inform the country when the 20% duty-free concessions on pickup trucks used by farmers will be extended to other vehicles used in the agricultural sector. The move is part of efforts to boost the sector, which tumbled by a cumulative 25% during the third and fourth quarters of last year. The agriculture sector directly employs 250,000 people and contributes 8% of GDP. Another 320,000 people are indirectly employed to the sector, with a contribution of 18% of GDP when combined with agro-processing. Further afield, gene testing firm 23andMe has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. In a statement announcing the bankruptcy, the board's chair said they determine a court-supervised sale process is the best path forward. The statement added that the CEO had resigned effective immediately. The action comes years after 23andMe struggled to find a sustainable business model. Its core product, an at-home DNA testing kit offering personalized genetic insights. 23andMe tried to convert one-time buyers into subscribers but repeatedly fell short of its goals. And that's it for the Business Minute. Time now for the top regional and international stories.
In the region, a coalition of 16 U.S. attorneys general filed an amicus brief supporting the Department of Homeland Security's humanitarian parole programs for vulnerable immigrants such as those from Haiti, Cuba, Nicaragua, Venezuela, Afghanistan, and Ukraine. The coalition is urging the court to halt the Trump administration decision to terminate these programs, which has disrupted the lives of thousands of immigrants and threatened family unity. On the international scene, Venezuelan public sector employees starting Monday will work reduced hours 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. for the next 6 weeks as a part of efforts to cut energy consumption due to high temperatures. The government is aiming to ensure the stability of the electrical system, especially in the Andean region where water levels in reservoirs have been affected. Essential services will continue and the public is encouraged to use energy-saving measures. And those were the top regional and international stories. I'm Anthony Atkinson, TVJ News.
And we head to a quick break. When we come back, we'll have your midday sports report.